Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Maria, and today I'm going to be talking about abortion. 2 videos ago I did a video and it was my English speaking, and I chose the topic of abortion, but the pro-life arguments for it. In that video I gave my speech, I delivered it as I did in the classroom, but obviously it doesn't cover everything. It doesn't cover a lot of the things that I want to talk about and a lot of the things that are on my heart and stuff. And so I put up a Q&A on Instagram and I'm going to be answering those today. But before we get into it, I upload every single Friday, and yeah, that's about it. Just subscribe down below, like this video, comment and share, and follow me on my socials down below. That'd be really cool. Thanks. And I also wanted to say a sort of disclaimer. Last video, a lot of people were skeptical, and I get that, and a lot of people were quite aggressive towards me, but I fully understand that. Like, I'm not naive. I know that this is very serious. This isn't fun and games, and it isn't to me. It's not like I'm just trying to be controversial to be funny or for the sake of it. I genuinely care about this, and I genuinely want people to hear the other side to it. And in that video, a lot of people got really annoyed at me for saying that people are just pro-choice out of peer pressure. And I understand that obviously not everybody is pro-choice because of peer pressure. But think of the majority. The majority of people are undecided on abortion because they haven't researched about it, and they haven't found out about it, and they haven't put extensive time into it, learning about it and learning the different aspects of it and the different sides to it. And so they go with the most common view because they don't want to stand out, and that is true. If you don't think that's true, then I'm sorry. I don't know what world you're living in, because when I put out my video on being pro-life, so many people got annoyed at me for no reason. What could I have done after that? I could have gone, well, no one agrees with me, so I'm just gonna go with the majority. And what I want to do is just break that, and I just want to show you that there is a different side to it, and you can think something different to what everybody else does. That's not criminal, that's not wrong. As well as that, I just want to say, I know how it can hit home for some people. Maybe your mum's had an abortion, maybe your sister, maybe your friend, maybe you. First of all, I just want to say, I don't put this video out to shame people who've had abortions. Honestly, if I knew you, I wouldn't care. That doesn't stand in front of me being a friend. It doesn't affect how I see you. You are still a person who is valuable. I mean, or whoever who has had that abortion in your life, maybe. They are valuable, and they are a person, and they deserve compassion and support. They don't deserve to be shamed. I don't hate you if you've had an abortion. I don't hate you if your mum's had an abortion. I don't hate you if your friend's had an abortion. But I'm just trying to help people of the future, and I'm just trying to educate and inspire and encourage a little bit. And I hope you understand I'm not better than anyone else. People get that perception that as soon as I start talking about the fact that I'm pro-life, I think I'm better than everyone else. I do not. Anyway, we should probably get into it, because I am waffling once again. Waffling, that is my specialty. So, number 1, do I agree with the use of contraceptives? And this is might not seem related immediately, but is actually a very good question. Basically, there are 2 types of birth control: preventive and abortive. And it is actually a medical fact that the morning after pill and many abortion drugs actually terminate the pregnancy. Basically, I don't agree with the morning after pill, and I don't agree with most contraceptive drugs. But I do want to say, if you take the pill for heavy periods or for medical conditions, that's fine. I'm not saying don't use the pill. I'm saying don't use the pill if you're having sex, pretty much. But obviously there are the preventive contraceptives, so there's condoms, diaphragms, I don't really know what else. They actually just prevent the sperm from reaching the egg. So the way I will always operate in my life is, if it kills a fertilized egg, then it's not happening. Then I can't use it, because that is directly going against what I believe in. And ultimately, I will do my best, I will consult professionals, I will do my research, and I will find which birth control method will be best for me. As long as I follow that principle, I will not kill a fertilized egg. Simple as. And on that, if you are having sex, please be safe, because It's just smart. It's just smart. It is just smart. You probably know it already. I hope you know it already. Okay, so question 2 is, when do I think life begins? Or when does life begin? Because really it's not something you can have an opinion on. It's not just like, oh, I think life begins then, so that is why I'm opposed to abortion. Because then someone else could go, yeah, but I think life begins then. We have to look at it objectively, and we have to look at it biologically and scientifically. I think it's so easy to say that life doesn't begin at conception because a fertilized egg looks nothing like us. It doesn't look human, so it's like, well, it's not really a person then, is it? But I think there are actually 3 things that we need to consider when we're debating this. So number 1, life does not begin at birth. We can certainly rule that out because it is illogical. Because going by that logic, it suggests that a baby 1 day prior to birth in the womb is not alive. And that's a bit silly because that baby could have been born that day and it would have survived easily. Number 2, second thing we have to consider, life does not begin at viability. Many argue that a baby should only deserve to live if he or she can survive outside the womb by herself. But this is really problematic because viability depends on external factors. If you think about it, babies today can be born at 24, 23, even 22 weeks old and still survive outside of the womb. Whereas 200 years ago, that wasn't a thing. They would have died pretty easily. And viability also varies with location. Wealthy nations make things possible for babies and not possible for people in countries that are poorer. So life does not begin at viability because viability depends on technology, and it depends on the time, and it depends on the place. I think the third thing we need to consider is that life doesn't begin at the heartbeat. You have to think about this. Living things only come from living things. An embryo isn't non-living, and then as soon as its heart starts beating, it's living. I mean, what is actually really functionally impressive about an embryo is that they can actually live and grow and develop without the one thing that we all need to grow and live and develop. So life doesn't begin at birth, life doesn't begin at viability, and life doesn't begin at the heartbeat. So we haven't got a lot of leeway here. It must mean that life begins at conception. The moment a baby is conceived, they are genetically different from the mother and the father. Science and logic points to the fact that a baby is alive as soon as he or she is conceived. Okay, question 3. When do I think consciousness in an embryo is formed? I worded that kind of weirdly. Why did I do it that way round? When do I think consciousness is formed in an embryo? There we go. There we go. And the reason I put this question in, it might sound a bit confusing because it's like, yeah, but isn't life the same thing as consciousness? But life is different to consciousness. And honestly, this answer might sound a little bit wishy-washy, but I believe that consciousness and the soul, that is not something any of us can determine. None of us can determine when that begins. Ultimately, I just believe that it is a mystery that cannot be determined by us. Does that make sense? Like I said, that's kind of wishy-washy, but consciousness is different to life. I think if you start to think about it deeply, if full consciousness is necessary for personhood, so if it's necessary for me to be conscious to be considered as a person, then what about normal people who are asleep? A person isn't a person before they go to sleep, and then isn't a person while they're sleeping, and then is a person when they wake up. Sorry, that's confusing. But do you see how that's kind of a silly argument to say, oh, but we don't know when consciousness is formed in an embryo, so we can abort it? But a very good question and very important. I mean, both those two questions are very important because we have to determine whether it is alive in the womb, because that affects everything, every other argument you could throw. Okay, question 4, how are abortions performed in the UK? So there are actually 2 different methods to abort a child in the UK. So the first is medical procedure, and what happens is the woman actually takes some pills containing a medicine that actually blocks the pregnancy hormone. And then like 1 to 2 days later, the woman takes another medicine called misoprostol. And what it does is actually break down the lining of the womb, and after about 6 to 8 hours, there's blood loss, pain, and inevitably the loss of the child. The other method is the surgical method. There are actually 2 procedures that are done. So the first is up to 14 weeks in the womb. A tube is actually inserted through the cervix into the womb, and the baby is suctioned out. And then the other procedure, forceps are actually inserted through the cervix into the womb, and the baby's limbs are dismembered, and that is after 14 weeks. Question 5. What if the infant suffers after birth? Shouldn't they be aborted to prevent the suffering? This is interesting because there's actually a 2017 CBS report on Iceland, and it was a report about how Down syndrome is actually disappearing from Iceland. Almost 100% of the time over there that a woman learns that her child has Down syndrome, the child is aborted. But I've laid out the fact that the child is alive, and it is a life that has value because it is alive and therefore is protected by human rights. We have to think about it this way: you wouldn't kill the adult with a condition, because that is inhumane. So why do we allow for it in a child, in an unborn? If we live in a just society and we want a just society, we should hope that it cares for the most vulnerable in the society. I mean, think about it this way: how many times in primary school did you hear about bullying? Flippin' heck, we had an assembly on it every single week, and it's very important to know about. But what do we learn from it? That people shouldn't be made more powerful by picking on the weak, and they shouldn't exploit the weak. And that is true for every single circumstance ever. It's not just true for a little primary school playground banter. It's true for the government, it's true for our society. But we actually abandon those principles that people shouldn't be exploited just because they're weaker, or just because they look different, or just because they act different. We abandon those when it comes to abortion by saying that they're pretty much better off dead. And that is not just or compassionate. Killing somebody is not the right way to end suffering. Regardless of our physical or mental conditions, all of us are faced with challenges in life. Life is hard. However, a physical challenge for a child in no way guarantees a poor quality of life. Allowing ourselves to decide when someone's challenges or restrictions are so great that they do not deserve to live is dangerous territory. Like, what health conditions are serious enough to justify ending lives? Who gets to decide? Who determines that? Protecting the vulnerable should be our top priority, and that should be laced with compassion and love and service and sacrifice. This question is kind of similar. Question 6. What about mothers who cannot financially provide for the child? And I think it's similar to what I've just said. If we apply that argument to a life in the womb, then we apply it to every single life ever. A guy called Waterhouse worded it. I'll just read it for you. It says, every argument for abortion is the same argument for death for those who are already born. One argument that pro-choice people make is if a baby is born into poverty, they should be aborted because poverty is so terrible. However, wouldn't this just be the same argument for killing most of the population in Africa or South America or Asia? And if poor people shouldn't live, then why not rid ourselves of all poor people? No sane person would consider killing a child just because the child is impoverished. When you see these children suffering on TV and stuff like that, you're actually drawn to help them, and you just feel compassionate and you just want to reach out and help. You don't think, oh, we should just kill them off so they don't have to suffer through that anymore. You help them through that. Now, question 7. And this is probably the most anticipated. A lot of people will want to hear my answer to this. And the question is, what about cases of rape? What about women who are raped? shouldn't they surely they should have the right to abort their child? And it seems logical, right, to just say, yeah, if she's been raped, she should deserve to be rid of the reminder of that rape. How can you force a woman who became pregnant through no choice of her own to carry that child to term, to bear her rapist baby? But then if we just step out of that for 1 second, just step out and think of it this way. There are thousands of people today, alive today, who are conceived out of rape. And what is the difference between the unborn innocent, born of rape that they were back then, compared to the person conceived out of rape that they are now? I think what we need to understand is that we live in a world of trade-offs. We don't live in a world of, oh, here's a problem and this is the solution. We are dealing with two potentially very bad situations. A woman who has been raped and got pregnant and has to carry the child to term and then put it up for adoption when it's born, or a woman who has been raped and got pregnant and results in aborting the child, terminating the pregnancy, killing the unborn. All we are saying in the pro-life movement is that out of those potentially bad situations, killing a child for a crime it did not commit is worse. But I emphasize the but because I know so many people are like, yeah, but you're just pro-birth. You just want them to get out of the womb, but then you don't care about them after. And I agree that so many people are advocating for the unborns but don't care once the life is out, and they don't care for lives when they're out of the womb. So I believe, and this is why I've got to talk about it, I believe the woman is owed all our support. We should jump at helping women through pregnancies and crisis situations. We should be there for the women. I can't leave it at, oh, you got raped, well, you can't have an abortion, so tough. That's inhumane. That is inhumane. I need to turn around and go, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. If you carry this child to term, and I will help you through it with my money, with my time, with my resources, with my volunteering. I will help you through it. And I don't like using this argument, but 0.3% of abortions are due to rape in USA and Europe. And the reason I don't like using that argument is I don't want to diminish the trauma of rape. Yeah, only 0.3%, but there's still a 0.3% that matter. Rape is awful. Rape is evil. Rape is horrible, and rapists should be punished accordingly. They should be punished. They deserve to be punished, but the victims deserve compassion and care and love and support. And we need to recognize that abortion does not erase the trauma. Abortion does not undo the rape. Abortion subjects the woman to another round of trauma and a new variety of trauma. There are extensive conditions attached to the aftermath of abortion. I spoke about this in my last video about it. There are so many psychological effects on the woman, like mental health conditions that drive her to suicidal thoughts or even commit suicide, or marijuana usage or alcohol abuse or using drugs. Abortion is an obstacle to healing. A woman named Ashley Segrest actually spoke out about this. She opted to have an abortion after being raped. She said she couldn't deal with the pain of her rape because she was so focused on what she had just done to her unborn child. And this actually reminds me of this story that I heard. So I think if I find the link, I will link it down below. But there's this video and I was watching this woman talk about her friend called Leona, and she was raped at 12 years old, 12 or 13 years old, by 3 rapists, and she actually got pregnant, and she went to the doctor about it, and she actually said to the doctor, is this abortion going to stop me feeling like this? Is it gonna take away this pain? The doctor obviously had to say no because he can't guarantee that the pain is gonna go away. And so she decided not to have an abortion. And she said there were some days when she just felt so suicidal, and not because she was pregnant, but because of what had been done to her. She said the only thing that kept her going was that she was pregnant. The baby became the reason she lived, and the baby inevitably saved her life. The baby, now grown up, serves as a reminder of her strength and how beauty can come from tragic and awful and horrible situations. And that is why I cannot make an exception. I cannot say, no, abortion should be illegal except rape. I do think that just undermines the whole foundation for my argument. My argument is that it is alive. Biologically, this is confirmed. Logically, this is confirmed. Scientifically, this is confirmed. It is alive, and so we shouldn't be allowed to destroy it, because that life deserves rights, and that life deserves the right to live. Okay, question 8. Should abortions be made illegal? And I get why this is a question, because a lot of people would say that even if abortions were made illegal, there would still be many unsafe abortions. However, the fact that harmful acts against the innocent will happen regardless of the law isn't a good enough argument for having no law. It's actually interesting, but for decades prior to its legalization, 90% of abortions were actually done in physicians' offices, not in back alleys. And I actually have some statistics for you. I'll just read them out because I can't do it from the top of my head. It's very hard, okay? 100,000 abortions were illegally performed every year in the years leading up to Roe v. Wade. Its legalization, basically. And this was in 1973. And the year after this was passed, 898,000 abortions were actually done and performed in the US. That was the only year that the number of abortions was under 1 million. So it continued to rise until it peaked at about 1.6 million abortions around the 1990s. Now there's someone called Dr. Mary Calderone, I don't know how you say her name. She was the president of the medical division of Planned Parenthood, which is the biggest abortion provider in the US. And in 1959, this was about 10 years before its legalization, she gave a speech in the National Forum, and she said in that in the late 50s, the number of deaths as a result of illegal abortions had dropped to about 250 per year. This is such an important statistic. I mean, if the Guttmacher Institute is actually showing that abortion has risen all the way up to 1.6 million, it raises a very simple question. Why would we allow for the killing of 1.6 million in the guise of saving 250? But of course, this argument only works if the entity that is aborted isn't human. What I mean is, if you don't see that life as a life, and you can't see that life as a life, then it doesn't matter to you that 1.6 million of them are no longer alive. But I have pointed out that the life is alive, and therefore that means 1.6 million, and that is just in the US, are being killed. And ultimately, we just circle back round. Every single argument, we circle back round. If the entity being aborted isn't human, then what is it? What is the unborn? Alright y'all, this is a bit of an interlude. I filmed a video, but then my phone died and it didn't save the video, and I was looking on my camera roll and I was like, where is it? Oh my gosh, an hour I've just spent filming a video and now it's gone. And it was a bit annoying. But I filmed a second one. Guys, I just wasted another hour because once I finished filming the second one, the first one's on my camera roll. Wow! But yeah, it was a bit annoying, but it's okay. I'm just jumping on here to say there's a little cut between the lighting's changed and stuff because it got darker and stuff. Because I didn't finish the first one because my phone died, I'm just putting on the ending of the second one onto the first one, if that makes sense. Now question 9 is actually, what are steps people could take to help children that are unwanted? And obviously we should do everything we can to protect innocent life, every single thing we can. I mean, there are so many charities. If you search up right now, charities that help women through pregnancy, pregnancy resource centres, etc., you'll find so many, and there are so many to give money and time and volunteering to. And I know it's easier said than done, because what does it take from us? It takes sacrifice, and it takes giving up something. I might go, I don't really want to adopt a child because it's just gonna inconvenience me, and like it's not really my child because it's not coming out of my womb. And that is so selfish. How selfish how selfish is that? Like, and I hate that I have had those thoughts in the past, and now I look at it, I'm like, I can't wait to adopt a child and to give a child hope and opportunity and to give it a life. And yeah, that's ultimately it. Like, and that isn't to make me sound really righteous and be like, oh, look at me, I'm gonna adopt. Like, not at all, but instead to just maybe encourage you to do the same. Maybe adopt a child when you're old enough. Maybe give money when you're making money and not broke like me. Maybe you can give your time to volunteer at pregnancy resource centres and to help women. And yes, it costs something, but ultimately it's worth it because those lives are worth it. I think as well, just educating ourselves in general, like, can we educate ourselves about the reality of life in the womb, please? Because that is so important. Like, we need to know how a baby develops and how they live in the womb, and like I said, how abortions are performed, blah, yada yada. And as well as that, we need to be educated about the actual horror of the abortion industry. Like, Planned Parenthood, the biggest abortion provider in the US, the woman who started it was actually involved in something called the Negro Project, where they targeted ethnic minorities and black groups just to exterminate them and just to exterminate their babies, to reduce their population. This is also known as eugenics. See, I learned that through research, and that's what we have to do. We have to devote our time. If you genuinely are conflicted and don't know what to believe and don't know what to think, then please just consider looking into it, doing your research, and looking at a perspective other than yours. Obviously, you probably all know I'm a Christian, and a lot of you are probably like, well, if you're a Christian, then you're just saying that because the Bible says it. Yes, of course, the Bible points to that, and there are so many Bible verses who obviously don't explicitly talk about abortion, but talk about the sanctity of life and our purpose and how we're here for God, and God designed us and we are made in God's image. I could go on all day, but you don't have to be a Christian to be pro-life. It's just the fact that I was a Christian, and so I saw that perspective. But it did take research and time before I truly understood where I stood on it. I actually have one more question, and this is to finish it off because it's just so funny. I'll just read it out because there were like three that were quite similar. So one said, how is it your business what other women do with their bodies? Isn't it the woman's choice? And aren't you just pro-life for religion? Not everybody is religious, so you can't force your views on others. And ultimately, this is the problem, because I believe the life in the womb is a life and deserves rights. And to say that I'm just personally pro-life, to just say, oh, I'm pro-life, but not everyone else has to be, that is the same as me saying, my future children, yeah, they're allowed life and they're allowed rights, but every other child is not. I believe that that is a life, and I want to fight for that life. So I would be doing you and the unborn children a disservice if I just kept that quiet just to not rock the boat or just to not be different. I think we either believe in the right to life for all human beings or we do not. And obviously, like I said, yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, that probably makes me more inclined to be pro-life, because I believe that you are here for a reason and that God loves you and that he has a plan for you, and I believe that your life was thought of before you were even conceived. But I don't see it as forcing my views on you, because there are a lot of things I believe as a Christian, and most of those things I will not impose on you because you don't have that same standard for your life. Like you have not signed up to be a Christian. So that's totally fair enough, and I respect your decision to not be a Christian. That's fine. You can do whatever you want, and that means you don't have to do the same things that I do. You don't have to live the same way. But when it comes to abortion, I believe that unborn babies' lives are on the line. Children's lives are on the line. And therefore I cannot stay quiet, because what am I doing? What am I doing if I stay quiet about that? You have to see it from my perspective. If I believe that millions of lives are being stripped away, for me to not speak up about that is just ridiculous. That's pretty much it. And I understand that it can be really difficult to kind of listen to someone who has different opinions to you. But I just hope this opened your mind a little bit and maybe encouraged you to do your own research instead of just going along with what all your friends think or what other people think. Actually forming an opinion for yourself. And that is what I meant by peer pressure. But ultimately, we just need to strive for more compassion. We need to do a better job caring for women, even women who have had abortions. I love you and you deserve compassion and care, and you don't deserve to be shamed for that. But ultimately, we just need compassion for everybody, and we need to just do a better job. We need to support unborn, we need to support women, we need to support parents. I still feel like there's so much to say, but I've kind of exhausted everything, so I will let you get about with your day. But thank you again for watching and lending your ears to me. It's so important, and I'm not sure if I'll be answering any more questions or responses because, to be honest, I'm quite drained. Like, this has taken a lot. I am still a person and I'm not an evil monster and I don't have the capacity to, you know everything and be educated on everything and know how to answer every single question. So please appreciate that. And yeah, I'm just a person. I'm just trying to figure stuff out. But I really hope this encouraged you or inspired you or gave you a new perspective or educated you. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe down below and like and comment and share. Beautiful people, peace out.